Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about what are for me the greatest rock and metal bands, albums, gigs of all time, based on my experiences of listening to thousands of albums and going to hundreds of gigs. Please press the red button to subscribe to this channel. It's free, it's easy to do, so that you can see future episodes of Greatest Rock and Metal. Thank you very much. Today, it is album review time, and I am going to be talking about the new album from the legendary guitarist, Mr. Michael Schenker. Michael Schenker, been around a long time. He's actually celebrating his 50th anniversary of being in music. His first recorded work going way back 50 years ago when he was only 16 years of age. And he's also celebrating 40 years as a solo artist. My introduction to Michael Schenker came about in a way that I didn't even know I was being introduced to Michael Schenker. In 1979, I bought this album, Love Drive by the Scorpions, and I didn't really notice at the time. I was pretty young and I'm not really getting into who was in the bands as much. I was more just concerned about the music. And I didn't realize until a few years later that actually Michael Schenker played on a lot of the tracks on the Love Drive album. And also a few years later I learnt that actually the Scorpions was the first band that Michael Schenker was in. He played on 1972's Scorpions debut album, Lonesome Crow. And that's the only Scorpions album that he actually played on in full, although he did contribute to a lot of the songs on the Love Drive album, both writing a couple of songs and playing lead guitar on about probably more than half the album. So, after Lonesome Crow, he joined the British band UFO, and there's one of their albums there, the legendary UFO album, live album, Strangers in the Night, which has got all the best UFO songs on it that Michael Schenker did with them. He did 5 studio albums with UFO, and that's the band with which he made his name as this amazing guitar player. And he is a brilliant lead guitar player, without any shadow of a doubt. In 1980, he formed his own solo band, known as MSG, Michael Schenker Group. And he released a couple of very well received albums in 1980 and 1981 under the MSG or Michael Schenker Group title. And that then led to another brilliant live album, which was my first introduction to Michael Schenker. This MSG One Night at Budokan, a live album with all the best tracks from his first 2 studio albums on it. And I heard this at a friend's house, this album, and I thought, wow, this is brilliant. And I went out and bought it, and I've been a fan of Michael Schenker ever since. Now, when I say a fan of Michael Schenker, I would say I'm more of a casual fan. I kind of followed his career, and I bought a few of his albums, but not the whole discography. I've kind of dipped in and out of it. Which brings us forward to today, after that little bit of history. Schenker has produced a huge number of solo stroke band albums over the last, since he left UFO. Most of them have come out under the MSG title or the Michael Schenker name. He's had bands such as Temple of Rock, which is one of his more recent bands, and even more recently than that, he did the Michael Schenker Fest, which was a brilliant idea. It started off as a live thing where he brought back three of his most well-known vocalists from early in his studio career: Gary Barden, Robin McAuley, and Graham Bonnet. And each of those vocalists would come out and do a few songs from their albums he'd done with him. And also in a Michael Schenker live show you get a mixture of his own solo tracks, the MSG tracks, and you get some UFO songs and Scorpions songs as well. So a real nice mixture when you see Michael Schenker groups live. Now, 2021. I hadn't intended, and I haven't bought a Michael Schenker album for quite some time now, and I hadn't intended on buying the new one. This is his new album, just released a few weeks ago. Michael Schenker, it's also got the MSG logo, and the title is Immortal. So why do I have it? Well, the album leaked quite a few weeks before it was released onto the internet, and I'd seen some of the videos that were officially released for songs that were going to be on the album. I thought, yeah, these are good. These are really, really good. And then a few weeks ago, when I heard the full album, I thought, this isn't just good. This is brilliant, and this is a brilliant album. So I had to buy it. So I bought the vinyl version. Superb value for money. This it really is. Got fantastic cover artwork. Even though it's a single album, it's a gatefold cover with all the lyrics inside, and then obviously the song titles on the back. What's also important to note, although you can't see it here, the number of different musicians on this album is incredible. There's different vocalists, different drummers. The only consistent thing is obviously Michael Schenker plays all the guitars. So each song, you've not just got the lyrics, but you've got two of the main contributors on vocals and musicians for each track as well. And I was lucky enough, and I'm really quite surprised. You know, you hear about these limited edition vinyl releases, and I'm not sure how limited some of these things are. This is apparently only 300 copies worldwide. I find it hard to believe that only 1 month before this was released, I was still able to buy this from the official website. But there you go, I'm lucky enough to have it. Apparently only 300 copies across the world exist of this red and black marble vinyl. And what an album it is. What's also interesting about this album is the way it was recorded. This is true COVID recording. This is what the world has brought us now. This isn't a band in the same room playing the songs. And it's actually detailed within the notes here, the different places in the world where certain things were recorded. You've got some vocals by Gary Barden that were recorded in Thailand. You've got Ronnie Romero's vocals being recorded in Bucharest, and various other countries of the world where this album was recorded, and then it's all sent over the internet and pieced together by the producer. The producer on this album is a guy called Michael Voss. Co-produces it with Schenker and does a fantastic job. Schenker and Voss's production on this album is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It sounds fantastic. It really, really does. So, what about some of the tracks on the album? Well, as always, I'm going to pick my favourite 4 tracks. The first track that I will pick is the the opening track, Drilled to Kill. Now, the vocalist on this track is a guy by the name of Ralph Sheepers, who's the vocalist for a power metal band called Primal Fear. I've kind of heard a few bits and pieces from Primal Fear, but I don't know a huge amount about them. But Ralph's vocals on this are brilliant, and it is a full-on heavy metal, pedal to the floor, driving track with some brilliant guitar solo. There's a lot of guitar soloing on this song from Schenker, and also another guest musician, famous guest musician, Derek Sherinian, who provides keyboards and does an old school kind of guitar keyboard duel with Schenker towards the end of the track. It's a great way to start the album. One thing I should mention, it's tough to pick just 4 tracks from this album. For me, there is not a bad track on here. All of the songs are excellent, and because of the variety of vocalists and musicians, you get a real variety of songs as well. So there's they're all rock, yeah, but it's nice to have that different sounds for a lot of the songs. It really works. The next track I will pick is Devil's Daughter, another track that Ralph sings, and I just love the chorus on this. We're the devil's daughter. A great song. It kind of makes me smile a little bit as I'm listening to it, and it's got a great riff from Schenker. Kind of like an up and down riff. You need to hear it really. Don't listen to my terrible impersonation. So, Devil's Daughter, another great track. Probably the standout track, and it's tough to have a standout track on an album that is so strong. The standout track would be Sail the Darkness. And this features the vocals of a guy by the name of Ronnie Romero, who's come to light a lot in more recent years, mainly because Richie Blackmore picked him to be the vocalist on a kind of reignition of Richie Blackmore's Rainbow Band in recent years, where they played a few live shows. And Romero is a brilliant vocalist, absolutely brilliant. He's able to handle all different styles, and it's kind of no coincidence that Sail the Darkness track, it has a Dio, Ronnie James Dio Rainbow feel to it. There's something about Romero's voice that it fits more with the Ronnie James Dio kind of sound, although he can sing everything, all different styles, brilliantly. But close your eyes and you could well be listening to early Rainbow when you hear this track. That's no slight against Schenker, because Schenker is not Richie Blackmore. They both hold equal status, in my opinion, as great guitarists and songwriters with different styles and sounds. The final track that I will pick from the album is the track that finishes off the album. And it's a cover of a Scorpions song, and it appeared on that Scorpions debut album, Lonesome Crow, and the track is In Search of the Peace of Mind. Now, the definitive version of In Search of the Peace of Mind, in my opinion, appears on the Scorpions live album, Tokyo Tapes, which Schenker does not play on. There the solo's played by a guy called Uli John Roth. But for me, what Schenker does with this cover version of his own song is brilliant. The guitar work, the solo on the original version was fantastic, and when Schenker talks about this solo, he said he doesn't know how he made the solo. It just kind of came to him. He's 16 years of age when he comes up with this solo, remember? And it's stunning. And he does stunning guitar work again on this song. It really is a guitar tour de force with not so many vocals on it. Now, what's also interesting about this cover version is that Schenker, the main vocals on this are by Ronnie Romero, but Schenker also brings back 3 of his previous vocalists from his MSG days. He brings back Macaulay and Barden and Doogie White, and they contribute very minimal vocals to this song as well. So there you have it. I would thoroughly recommend this album without any shadow of a doubt. It's a brilliant, brilliant album from Schenker. If you've had any interest in Schenker in the past, it's well worth dipping back in again and starting with this album. And it's made me want to go and dip back into some of the more recent albums as well, for sure, from Schenker. Okay, so let's have a little break and let's take a look at rock albums by the sea. Hope you enjoyed that. So I also thought I would share a little memory of the first time that I saw the Michael Schenker group live, and first time seeing Michael Schenker live. It was way back in 1987, and it was New Year's Eve 1987 at Wembley Arena. Here is a very faded ticket. And you'll see I've written on there MSG. I always used to write the support bands on there because MSG were supporting Whitesnake on their huge 1987 world tour. And wow, what a great introduction to MSG it was. And in fact, if you're really interested, do a YouTube search. You can find a bootleg bootleg audio of the MSG set list that night, and they were on fire, absolutely on fire. Now I must say I have seen MSG since then, and there was one particular memory I have where Schenker has suffered with demons over the years and did have a real problem with alcohol, I believe not so much so now. And one night when I saw Schenker, he was actually supporting the Scorpions of all things. He was just dreadful. You could see he was well out of his tree. But New Year's Eve 1987, supporting Whitesnake, he was on fire, and his band was on fire. Now, MSG was no longer the Michael Schenker group in 1987. It had been renamed the Macaulay Schenker group. Robin Macaulay was now the lead vocalist in the band. He'd replaced Graham Bonnet. And they were supporting a new album. And I got the set list here. You probably don't mind if I just have a reminder of the set list. And most of the tracks on the album, most of the tracks that they played that night in the set were from that album, the album Perfect Timing. They played 5 tracks from that new album, which is quite a lot for a support band set, especially when you've got a discography as huge as Schenker's at that particular time. But he also snuck in there some of his previous solo tracks. We had the brilliant instrumental Into the Arena. We had the guitar solo section, which was Courvoisier Concerto. I'm not sure if I've said that right. And then finishing off the set we had the UFO classic Rock Bottom. Although because it was only a just under 50-minute set, we didn't get the full extended version of Rock Bottom, which didn't matter. We'd already had the guitar solo section on Cavazio Concerto, and we didn't need an extended Rock Bottom for sure version of that. So it was a great introduction. The atmosphere was incredible that night. It was New Year's Eve, Wembley Stadium. Whitesnake were at the peak of their powers, and it was a sold-out gig, and really even everyone was, A, because it was Schenker, and B, because it was New Year's Eve, everyone was really into the support band as well. And it was a fantastic experience for me for my first introduction to Michael Schenker live. I should also say that they played the track Lost Horizons from the debut Michael Schenker Group album. Okay, so there you have it, just a little memory of the first time that I saw Schenker live. I would also like to give you some recommendations. If you've not followed Michael Schenker's career in any way and you want a kind of introduction to his discography, there is no better than the albums that I've already mentioned. I would go for the Scorpions' Love Drive album, which gives you a taste of the work that he did with the Scorpions. It's a brilliant album, it really, really is, and especially his guitar work on the instrumental he does with his brother on this album, Rudolf Schenker, the instrumental Coast to Coast. Of course, a great overview of his work with UFO is the live Strangers in the Night album, and same with MSG. Those first couple of MSG albums represented brilliantly on One Night at Budokan. And one thing I'll say about both of these live albums, and I've mentioned this about live albums before, sometimes some bands in the past have not been able to capture their real power sound in the studio. And UFO and MSG, I think, were a little bit guilty of that. They had far more power to their songs, and some of their studio albums just don't get it across. And that is why both of these live albums were so successful, in my opinion, because they were extremely well recorded, and you really get a lot more of the power of the music coming through. It sounds so much better than the studio versions. Even though I like UFO, I very rarely listen to their studio albums because they're just not a patch on this brilliant live album. And Schenker's guitar work is just stunning. And look at the songs he writes as well. Yeah, he was co-writing with other members of UFO, but his songwriting is so often overlooked. He writes brilliant songs. And then, of course, the fourth album I'd recommend is the new one, Immortal. Thank you very much for watching. Please press the red button to subscribe to Greatest Rock and Metal. It's free, it won't take you very long to do. And as always, until next time, remember, we rock!